Hello, is the mic working?
No, it's
Yes,
not.
it
I want
is.
to put you in now. Like, what's up, Google?
Twitch.tv/Jesse. Check it out.
Okay, how many people are here for the workshop? Pick to raise your hand.
No, I gotta get.
I hear the way.
Wow, what is your name?
It's Jessica.
Okay, good. So, no one else is here for the workshop then? That's unfortunate. Anyway, do you have this downloaded?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, who cares? So, first of all, I'm sure you know that Unity have scenes.
What I see.
Okay, scenes are basically like a collection of game objects that all represent like a level or like an area. You can transition between scenes using that class. Unity Engine.CManager, Scene Management.CManager. It has a few methods that control loading and unloading scenes, accessing scenes, and so on. You can find more information about it from that URL or just Google it. Mainly this workshop's going to be focused on just loading scenes and how to
Can you do like scene transition effects?
see transition effects. Well, that is, I guess, you can do effects, but it doesn't really have to do with,
Scene manager.
yeah. You just like do the effect and then you just transition to the other scene. So there are two main methods that you will use to load scenes. There's CManager.loadScene and CManager.loadScene async. The difference is that with loadScene, it just, on that line of code, it just waits until it finishes before moving on, while async makes it so that it returns an async operation and then just keeps going. With async operation, if you yield it in a coroutine, which I will go over in a future workshop, but if you know what coroutines are, you can yield them you can yield the async operation to wait until it's done in order to just know when it's done. But other than that, if you use load scene, the whole game will freeze until the scene finishes loading. With async, it does it in the background. Any questions?
So far?
Okay. The load scene methods also have a second parameter, an optional second parameter. You can use load scene mode, which you can either have it load a scene and then immediately deletes all other scenes, so you just transition to that scene. Or you can use additive mode, which instead adds the scene to the list, so you can have multiple scenes running.
So is it overlapping or
Yeah, it's overlapping.
is there like colliders overlap as well?
I believe so. Actually, I don't know. I'll need to test that out. With load scene parameters, it also has an object that has a load scene mode and a local physics mode. I'm not too sure about what that is, but I know there's three modes. There's none, 2D, and 3D. If I had to guess, I'll guess that's like how physics are done in that scene, probably. Anyway, if you want to load a scene from code, you have to add that scene to the build settings. So you just go to File, Build Settings, and then, do I not have, oh yeah, I'll do that later. Anyway, I provided a template project, which you all should have downloaded.
Yes, it definitely.
Anyway, it's a simple game where there are two scenes: a menu scene where you select a square, and then you and then you press start battle. I shouldn't eat all of this. Anyway, and then you pressing the button should transition to the battle scene, where you fight that square, and you just keep pressing the attack button, which should lower their health by 5. Then press go back, which should go back to the previous scene. The problem is that, well, actually, right now we'll focus on that problem later. You have to implement the scene transitions because I haven't done that yet. Now, if you have this project, you should all just follow along with me. But first, the other scene. So I added the particles just so that you can see the difference between load and load async. In load, the particles will just freeze a bit, while in async they won't. I hope. Depends on how fast this computer is. Anyway, you can pick one of these and you press start battle, but it doesn't do anything because I haven't implemented it yet. Anyway. And I've learned from my past mistakes and actually included the import or the yeah, because last time I didn't remember what the namespace was. Anyway, so you just go scene manager load scene. Do you want to see async or this normal first? Okay. I already had the buttons call the method, so let's see. Right. The next part. You have to add the scene to the build settings. Yeah. Why did I should have done that earlier before adding the scene transition. But yeah, you go to the battle scene and then you click add open scenes. Or if you don't have to do it one at a time. If you really want to, you can just drag all the scenes you want there and yeah. But huh? Anyway, it should be working now. The scene transition part. So
It's really fast.
see, it's fast, but you can see the particles like just stop for a split second, especially in this one, because in the other scene there's more objects, so it takes slightly longer to load. But if you look carefully, you'll see the particles just pause. But anyway, we run into a problem when I select a different one. It's still the red one. And when I attack it, and I go back, oh no, his health is still full. It's as if data doesn't
Transfer between scenes.
exactly, yay.
How do we fix that?
Well, good question. One problem, well, I've already mentioned that. The game, okay, so when we transition to a new scene, the game objects are removed. And in those game objects are the components that I originally used to track the information, like the health and stuff. So,
But it's not static variables, not change.
huh?
I thought static variables didn't change.
No, you're thinking of constant variables. Static just means that it's associated with the class rather than its objects. So yeah, to solve this, we're using static variables, which are, like I just said, attributes of the class rather than the objects of that class. So the scripts They're stored in the scripts.
Changes,
So here's one version of doing it. It's pretty bad, but it's for demonstration purposes. Rather than just putting the variables everywhere, we should have one class to store all of it in. Pretty sure my workshop series is like mistakes I've made in cooking with Cain, what not to do. Yeah. Anyway, so the only thing we need to store is like the color and the health, and I've made sure to associate each color or square with a number because that will make accessing the health easier. Yeah, in an array. Since these are static variables, they're associated with the Game Manager class rather than Game Manager objects, so we won't have to create one. We'll still need to make that class. Oh, also fun fact, if you name a script Game Manager, it has a different icon for some reason. No idea why it does that. Oops. So here's the Game Manager. Anyway, so public static int color number. Why is it doing that? Equals 0 because I'm not. Public static int health. Why does it do that?
Because you have 0 references.
Oh, I see. Equals. No, it's not int. Int array. Yes. I hate this keyboard. Yay. Now we have to go through every single other stuff which uses these values and actually use them, because right now they're only storing them as attributes of their own components. Rather, we need to have them use the values in the Game Manager instead. And here I have a list so I don't forget anything. Health bar in the square in the battle scene. So, which one of these was it? Battle health bar. So yeah, we don't need this anymore. Delete. Hold on. Oh yeah, and I also provided an array of colors so you can have easy access to them. So in the start, you need to set the color to be the right color. I think this was the right one. Is it image.color? Probably. And then this one you need Game Manager dot health index Game Manager dot color number. Oh yeah, formatted strings or whatever these are called. Python F strings. How fun. And yeah, this is the thing that is called when you press the attack button. So yeah, there's that one. Square color. Once again, you just set the color to be color equals colors dot color number. Why did I call it color number instead of color index? What else? We need clicking on the square in the menu scene. Should update the right color. On the square select. And look, I provided a color number already. So yeah, this is the method that is called when you click on UI objects. So the selector thing is like the black outline that shows you which one you clicked on. So when you click on it, stop doing that. Manager.color number equals color number. But not only that, but when the scene starts, you have to also set the color number. Wait, no, not the It was, oh, you have to move the selector to this object if the color numbers are equal. So I will copy this. If that, change this to double equals. This is in Python, I need parentheses. Frick. And then take this thing, copy it, and paste it in a new line. No, you don't. If there's only one line, you don't need it. What else? Square should update the color number. I got that. Going back to the menu scene, the health bar should show the right values and the right color should be selected. I just did this, so it's time for this one. It was menu health bars. Delete this, or actually no, I can keep that. Instead, set health to equal to game manager dot color, no, health index color number. Anyway, let's see what compile errors we have. Okay. It's blue. Looks like it's working properly. But yeah, I forgot one thing. You need to show you what it looks like when you load it async. There's barely going to be any difference, but there will be one. If you looked carefully, you'll see that the particles didn't freeze. I don't know if you saw it, but I saw it. When you have bigger scenes, you'll notice it. This workshop's going too fast. I need more stuff to talk about. Here's another version of the game manager. One problem with doing it that way is, say you want to test whether, like, what happens if you have the game state in like a different state. Like, what if you start with different health values? Or what if you want to like change color number at the start instead of like going into the scene and then manually setting them? You can't really set static variables within the Unity editor. So a different way is to use the singleton pattern, which is basically, now you do actually create a game manager object, but all other objects and components will have a static reference to it. And when you transition to another scene, you'll still have that same reference. The problem with that is if you have multiple game, or like if you have a game manager in every scene, whenever you transition to another scene or you go back, you'll have multiple of them. And also, you have to have it so that the game manager doesn't delete itself when you transition to another scene. Otherwise, you'll just lose all that data. So, but if we have it so that we don't delete them, it raises another problem where we'll have multiple game managers. So instead, we check if a game manager already exists, and if it does, we simply delete itself. If you go there, you'll find more information on the singleton pattern. There are some disadvantages about it, but well, I don't remember them. So Unity provides a don't destroy and load method, which makes a object not get destroyed when the scene is deleted. As I mentioned before, there will be multiple of the same object. Also, if you have your game manager as an object rather than just having static variables, you're able to store your game manager as a JSON string. So if your game manager contains data that is like save data, you're able to store that easily instead of just converting all of it into JSON, to like a separate object and then converting it to JSON. Anyway, we'll do that now. Oh no. First, we'll just get rid of the static, and cause a bunch of errors to happen. Yeah. Basically, you have a public static game manager instance, and that will be the reference that all other objects will be using. And then in the awake method, because we want it to load this before anything else happens. Because as you saw earlier, I accessed the game manager object or the game manager variables from the start method. So you can go and void awake. And here you do, first you have to check if one already exists. So you do if instance doesn't equal null, and then destroy, if I can spell it correctly, this dot game object. Turn. Now, if there is none, first you set instance equal to this, then you use don't destroy on load this dot name object. Yep. Any questions about this? Okay. So now there should be errors everywhere. Oh, okay. VS Code is shit. Dot instance. And now I will. Another option is just have a game manager equals game manager dot instance, somewhere reference that instead of sticking this everywhere. Okay. Leave that there. I'm sure I forgot some already. Is that all? Doesn't seem to. Okay. Now, if you go into, it will error because object reference is not set to an instance of an object, because you're going to have to actually create a game manager. So just have like an empty game object and then game manager. And see, now you can actually set the health and color number. And you should add it to the battle scene as well if you want to like be able to start from the scene. If you start from the menu scene, then we won't need a game manager object in the battle scene because it'll still use that one. But if you want to start from the battle scene for any reason, you'll need one. So yeah, it should be working properly. And also, if you look in the inspector window, you'll notice it makes a separate section called Don't Destroy and Load, which contains our game objects. And if you notice, when we pick a different one, it actually updates that information there. And if you want, you can go into here and say, change it. So that way you can actually start the scene with different values. When we're using static variables, we couldn't do that because it doesn't show static variables in here. See, it keeps those values. Okay, what else? There are other ways you can do it. There's actually a lot of other ways you can do it. Instead of having just the variables scattered around in the game manager, you can have like one object or like a class that holds the data. Just like the save data class I made in the last workshop, which I don't think you went to. If you want that class to be shown in the Unity Inspector, you have to apply the serializable attribute. Would you like for me to show you that? I'll do it anyway. Normally you can't get like reference the game manager in your scene because you're not always sure that it's the same one. Like it might, if you start from a different scene, it'll delete the one that's in that scene. And even when you go back to the original scene, it's still not the one that you created in that scene. you can fix this by changing the awake method so that instead of deleting the new object, you simply transfer the data to the new object and then deleting the original one.
That was like kind of make it really
Okay. I will show you how to do both because how much time? We're halfway done. Game manager. Okay. I'll create a new class called game data, and then serializable. Okay, and that will have these variables. And then public game data equals new game data, because why not? And I will just change these a bit because I don't want to update all the references again. Data dot color number. Data dot color number equals value. Oh no. How does this work? Yeah. So now, when you go into here, if you look in the game manager, instead of having it be just variables there, you just have a data thing, and you can open it, and it'll show that. If you don't have the serializable attribute, it won't appear in the inspector. So yeah, that's the first thing I was talking about. Second thing is, say for some reason you have a button that calls one of these methods here or something. Or say you have like a save or load method in here and you have buttons that do that. You won't be able to like, hello, are you here for the workshop?
Nope, I'm out and watch it.
Okay, say you have one of these buttons and you want to like call GameManager.save or something. You won't be able to do that since this one might not be the one that's currently existing if you start from a different scene. So you can fix that by, instead of destroying this object, first you take the data and you copy it from that one, and then you destroy the original one, that way. If you load it from a different scene into this scene, this game object will, instead of deleting itself since another one already exists, it will copy the data and delete the previous one. Okay. Any more questions? No. Data that comes from a different scene.
Oh.
Yeah. That's the last slide. I don't have anything left. Would you like me to go over everything again?
Can I see through the slides just to see?
Yes.
Scene transition. Okay.
Yeah.
Scene management. Guys, your script for that?
The script that transitions between the scenes, or
Yeah. Just to follow along.
well, it's just this. It's
Oh, yeah,
literally
okay.
this. I just had a button. This button,
Uh-huh.
and it just calls
Is it like a fading scene transition or just a
just a transition. If you want a fading scene transition, you just, instead of just simply calling the method, you trigger a fade effect,
Yeah.
like in a coroutine, where when it finishes fading, then you load the other scene.
Okay.
And yeah,
So, loads the scene and waits for it to finish loading. Not recommended to use this method as it may cause the game to freeze until the scene is downloaded. Loads the scene in the background and treats it as async operation. Method or code running. Okay.
yeah. There's load scene modes, which if you
Yes, go and add it.
look,
I didn't know they had added it.
yeah. So build settings, sample pop. Yeah. And then there's that one. Adding stuff to build settings.
Yeah, data persistence.
Huh?
Single or statics.
Okay, the first one is about statics. The second version is about singleton. And then
another advantage of using this version of game manager is that it is a valid object. Well, this will also based on the
Yeah. It'll have
stuff I went over in my last workshop. And then there's the
instead
one.
of having multiple variables. Save a single data yeah. Like I said, yeah, copying the data.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I had to do this in System Came because I had a save method in the game manager and a button that calls that method, but it didn't work because the object it was referencing might be deleted, so I changed it to do this instead.
The copy of
Yeah. So, well, do you have any more questions?
This does is it takes it for 30 seconds and then essentially goes to file
none that I can think of.
which is a very similar
Never mind.
page.
He went away. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, that's the end of this workshop. And it was 39 minutes.
Pretty good.
Okay. Thank you all for watching. If you're on Twitch, I'll see you.
Is it Twitch or YouTube?
I don't know.
I
It's
think
on
YouTube.
it's on Twitch, I'm pretty sure, but maybe. Well, see y'all next week where I'll talk about scriptable objects.
Woo!